I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm going to do one more thing. Here's my picture. Okay. On this topic, because it's really very relevant to me at this point in time. The whole idea of freedom in relationship to bondage and the different types of bondage that exist. And Thomas Jefferson and his Declaration of Independence is one of my favorite pieces of writing. I taught government at Westmore, so this is really just a very special day for me to get a chance to share. As Michael mentioned, three different pieces of writing that all have a similar theme. You know, the relationship between freedom and bondage. Okay, Freedom, Eternal Dance, it's Evil Twin Bondage. It's all about contrast and duality. Obviously, you know, we live in a world that is driven by contrast and duality. That's the essential feature of this existence that we call life. But in freedom and bondage, it's not just a black and white issue, as all of you know. You know, there's shades of gray in freedom and bondage. And at any moment in time, a freedom can become a bondage and the reverse. So we're going to kind of look at it, not in huge detail, but keeping in mind that it's always shifting and it's always shades of gray. So what is bondage? Okay, well, dictionary wise, bondage is the state of being bound by or subjected to some external power or control. But as we'll see, it's not always external. Not being free because you are strongly influenced by something very, could be very abstract, very subconscious, or someone. So internal versus external types of influences that will create a sense of not being free, a sense of being tied up or bound. But what is freedom, independence, liberty? You know, it's definitely feels better on the emotional scale, feels better than bondage. The power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. Okay, very American idea. This is a free country. You know, this is America. You can say what you want. You can do what you want. You can think what you want. And the power of self-determination attributed to the will. And this gets very abstract and very, very philosophical and metaphysical when you start talking about the essence of free will and the role that it plays in our lives, and the quality of being independent of fate or necessity. Okay, so all of this in terms of our Independence Day goes back to the Age of Enlightenment, which essentially can be summed up with, I think I can. Okay, the Age of Enlightenment, 1600s, very important time in the history of mankind. It emphasized the pursuit of happiness, sovereignty of reason, and the senses as primary sources of knowledge. It was where the mind took center stage, okay, and not just individual minds, but collective minds, science minds. We entered the age of rational, reflective thought. Liberty, progress, toleration, constitutional government, separation of church and state were its ideals, and it undermined the authority of the monarchy and the Catholic Church, paving the way for the American Revolution. Again, I can't say how important this phase of human development really was in the evolution of mankind. John Locke, as it relates to us in this 4th of July Independence Day, was one of those Enlightenment thinkers. And in 1680, he published the Second Treatise on Civil Government. And these ideas are going to look pretty similar. It is to what we know from our Declaration. It is evident that all human beings are equal among themselves. The state of nature has a law of nature to govern it, which obliges everyone that being all equal and independent, no one ought to harm another in his life, health, liberty, or property. Very similar to Jefferson's Declaration of Independence famous quote, because he took it straight, he adapted it because he stole it, and in July 4th, 1776, he took one of his great heroes' words and incorporated them into the Declaration of Independence. And his structuring of those ideas are what we know very well. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And he didn't use the word possessions, even though Locke thought the human's self was its greatest possession, that self of free will was its greatest possession. Possessions also meant tangible things. And because of slavery, Jefferson certainly could not use that in his quote. So pursuit of happiness became an ideal for the American psyche. But this is my favorite quote from Jefferson's declaration. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. Okay, not just in government, but as we know, change does not come easy. The thematic question in my screenplay that relates to these things, the suffering, okay, our willingness to suffer rather than to change, is the thematic question for most of the characters in this screenplay. They all have some kind of suffering, some kind of bondage, especially our hero, but all the others do. And how are they going to change? How much suffering are they going to have to endure? And how are they going to go about bringing the end of that suffering by making both internal and external changes that clearly need to be made? So that's kind of the story set, like I said, in late 1800s, New Orleans. Mark Twain's one of the characters, plays a major role. It's a really interesting story, but I don't have time to go into the details here. Okay, so it did, though, inspire me that since I started to write, I had to put my thinking cap on. Okay, I had to start answering those questions, lots and lots and lots and lots of questions concerning characters and how they're going to illustrate, freedom versus bondage and the struggle to change. So that's one of the reasons why I love screenwriting, is you got to put your thinking cap on. So with the thinking cap on, here's what we're looking at in terms of exploring theme of bondage versus freedom. And as I did that, as I began to do my research and take a look at this, I realized that there are just enormous types of bondage versus freedom. Okay, there's karmic, if we are in fact bound one lifetime to another through karma, clearly that's a bond that's pretty strong. Fear is a bond that binds us, something that binds us up and keeps us from feeling free or acting free. Dependence and addiction, another form, of bondage. Shame, guilt, all emotional, internal forms of bondage, external, that have external manifestations or external triggers. So as you can see, moral, social, karmic, physical, sexual, genetic, emotional, psychological, intellectual, financial, contractual, legal, all kinds of bondages that that each of us deal with, as part of the life experience that we have here. And all very interesting, aspects to explore in terms of character development and plot development. One thing about bondage is that it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing or an unpleasant thing. That's kind of interesting as I explored it. There are purse strings that are negative, bitter types of bondage through purse strings. And there are sweet types of bondage through purse strings. The same with heartstrings. These are the only two strings that I could kind of come up with that do bind people up either in a bitter or a sweet manner. Um, but they're very common, and they come in all different forms and expressions. But those are the only two strings as far as ties that bind us that I could come up with. Now, individual freedom from an external point of view is what the Declaration of Independence was all about. This book is all about internal freedoms. Okay, the big freedom that she's talking about in this book deals with the control that we have over our own state of being, our own state of mind, our own emotional profile, experiences at any moment. So she's dealing, with this ultimate freedom that transcends circumstances. And one of my characters actually illustrates this. It's the sex slave, interestingly enough, who is going to channel this woman's perspective. It's freedom from inner negativity, harmful self-judgment, self-limiting beliefs, and the lingering subconscious pain of a past experience. That's what she's talking about in terms of achieving big freedom. You are free from these four things. Okay, some of us have managed to do this better than others, but all human beings are challenged with this, at least at some point in their life. How do we use our free will to increase our sense of freedom or of bondage, our awareness, our experience of it? Okay, are we experiencing a situation as a free situation, or as ourselves free in that situation? And that's the important thing, what we sense about it. As an adult, we have free will and can use that to remodel ourselves, to break the ties that bind us to our early psychological imprinting. She calls those agreements. What two cues alert us to the faulty psychological foundations that might exist within us? An automatic, strong, negative emotional reaction to a trigger event. Okay, we've all had those. They're fight or flight. They may not have anything to do with the circumstance that we're in, but something about that circumstance triggers that reaction, that memory, that deeply embedded fear, and bam, we're having an experience. The demeaning, self-limiting shadow side story, it causes us to tell ourselves in response to those triggers. We then react, okay? We have some kind of a reaction to that fight or flight response and to the trigger that caused it. And it usually does not end well for our self-image, okay? The way we see ourselves. It's usually not empowering. So what shadow self-image do we hide from others and from ourselves? We all do it. Some of us more than others. It just depends, on how well we have met that shadow side of ourselves, how well we have interfaced with it and dealt with it. Some of us are much freer at showing, ourselves to others. Some of us not so much. Some of us we hide. We'll do anything to hide ourselves from ourselves and from others. How do we create a strong foundation for freedom? Well, she says, be honest with ourselves about the current state of our internal house and being willing to do the work to remodel it from the ground up through curiosity, questioning, who am I? What am I all about? Why do I behave this way? Patience, knowing that it's not going to change overnight, and openness, a willing to be transparent to some extent and let yourself be seen and embraced for who you are. She uses the 4 elements as her freedom toolkit to walk you through using this book to walk an individual through actually a workshop. Each chapter has activities that you can do that promote the kind of freedom that relates to each of these elements. Air is the lightness of a clear, curious mind. Air invites us to learn the art of clear perception, to see clearly, to see through maybe the distorted lenses that we're using to view ourselves and the world. Develop compassionate mental habits that offer supportive, creative thoughts when challenges arise. Basically, she's talking about self-talk. Okay, what do we tell ourselves in every situation that comes up? How do we dialogue with in our own mind? Some of us are aware of that dialogue, some of us aren't, but it's definitely plays a huge role. And the more aware you can become, she says, the clearer your mind will be about what it is you're facing. An internal support system is key because external supports, she says, offer only temporary stability, appreciation, security, and fulfillment. Personally, I've discovered, the hard way, that's there's some truth to that, probably a lot of truth to that. And most of us do look outside ourselves often, if not at our age, definitely we did as young folks. That's pretty typical stuff. Our culture creates that tendency in us. Daily extended moments of silence can provide the perspective needed to see the workings of the mind, allowing them to gently unfold, to be seen by the witness within. I've discovered this. I was really thrilled to read her comments on this because I've found sitting in silence to be the best invitation for intuition that I've ever found. Okay. And whether you call it meditation, although it's not a guided meditation, you really are just sitting and letting those thoughts, the workings of the mind, float. Okay. And you just watch them from a witness point of view, no judging, no trying to stop anything, no trying to make anything happen. And boy, I'll tell you what, I've just found that to be a remarkably insightful experience to have. A clear mind finds creative solutions, opportunities, excitement for the work of life. And that's, clear. Most of us know that if we're under stress or really confused or trying to, figure something out, the solutions don't come so easy. They generally come once we just surrender, kind of kick back and relax, take a break from it all, and then ideas start floating into our mind. And eventually, when that process becomes second nature, the excitement for the work of life, it really does make life a much grander adventure, much more enjoyable journey for sure. There's no question, for me anyway, for that to happen. Fire clears the mind of outdated beliefs. Fire clears what no longer serves us is the gist of fire. Beliefs, judgments, fears, the unconscious agreements we made with ourselves early in life and made with others, our parents, our society, our frenemies, all of these, have an impact on us. And especially if we're looking to them for our acceptance and our support. Our subconscious beliefs are a form of bondage that keep us from living our best life. Those subconscious beliefs, as far as the internal bondage that has an impact on us, no matter how free we are in a society or in our homes, those internal bondages are driving any experience of dissatisfaction or discontent or depression that we might have. And those subconscious beliefs are definitely behind it all. Okay. So got to get, according to her, and I agree, definitely got to get in touch with those subconscious beliefs and clear them out. Three common areas that need cleansing are old agreements that are unhealthy or beliefs that may or not be true, past actions or traumatic experiences, fears of many types, including the fear that we can't have or don't deserve what it is we really want out of life. And, you know, again, those fears can be deeply buried subconsciously, and it could take a little bit to bring them up to the surface, let them bubble up, and address them, clear them out. The cleansing process should be ongoing, a daily practice that allows us to discover reservoirs of happiness, energy, and integrity. Yeah, that's why, people say meditate every day, or sit, quietly every day, or do something that frees the mind up to kind of like do its cleansing process, especially once you've gotten into the habit of doing it that way. A lot of that happens for me when during my swimming sessions, what I use for swimming. My mind is still processing things, but it's doing it in a free and cleansing way. Water, making room for flow. Water is about becoming open to whatever life brings, dissolving blockages hidden deep within us. And that whatever life brings thing for me has been the most, seeing this and putting this slide presentation together, I've really resonated with me. Whatever life brings, embrace it, find something about it to appreciate, and just, if it's not exactly what you want, that's okay. Um, look for what it's bringing you. Look for the gifts that it's bringing you, because it is bringing something to be celebrated and appreciated. There's no doubt about that. How much we remain open is big freedom. Okay, and open to new possibilities, open to experiences that we've not ever imagined, were possible. Just remaining open is a wonderful opportunity to experience big freedom once you get comfortable with that. It takes a little while sometimes. What can being open do? It can release assumptions, invite miracles, allow assistance in ways we can't imagine. And Esther calls it allowing. You see what you want, you imagine what you want, you know that you want to accomplish this transformation, this one more expression of freedom. You want to be free to realize this, whatever, and so you start moving in that direction. And if you allow yourself to just let it take its course, let it unfold in its organic way, um, you get to free yourself up. Okay. You release assumptions as to what it should be, how it should come, when it should come. That invites miracles to happen. You cross paths, you have rendezvous that you didn't plan for, that just happen, that allow this whole new experience to just manifest. You allow assistance in ways that we can't imagine. If it comes in the form of something that you did not expect, or that at first looks bizarre, hey, embrace it. It might actually be a remarkable gift coming in an image that you could never have anticipated. Staying present and open to both the wanted and unwanted allows the magic force to do its thing. Okay, so it may clearly we all would like to think that if we got what we wanted, we would embrace it. We would be open to it, but that's not even always the case. And then the unwanted component to that, the contrast, some aspect of it that isn't what we think we wanted. If we just kind of flow with it, again, Esther's allowing, see what it brings, and find the magic that is present in it. It's part of the creative process. It wouldn't manifest if it wasn't part of your personal creative process. So it creates opportunities that we had not anticipated. Openness is a courageous internal trust to the unfolding of life at its own pace, allowing whatever emotion we are feeling at any point in time, but with the witness point of view. When we fight against unwanted emotions, we increase their power. I think we all are familiar with these perspectives. Earth, feeding, nourishing our depth. Seeds of love and fear live within us all, and what we nourish is what will grow. We've heard that before, and we know that in our hearts to be the case. By looking for ways to nourish our mind, our emotions, our body, and our spirit, we become more deeply rooted in self-love and self-respect. Treasure yourself, okay? Treasure the nourishment of all aspects of yourself. If you do that, you've got that center core established so that you can participate in the outer world in a much healthier and more rewarding way for you and for the outer world. Personal authenticity is the fertilizer for big freedom. Do we know what nourishes our personal authenticity? To learn what nourishes us, we need to investigate, explore, ask questions, watch and listen for signs. They will appear. Wait for the hints to appear. Embrace the insights. Real important. Like put this on the refrigerator. Okay. Practice doing this every day. And I hate to tell people what to do, but I think this really is beneficial. But this is the key. As we change, what nourishes us will change too. So this learning process will also be ongoing. And that's the most fascinating thing that I've experienced. What worked and was right for me to do one day, 2 days later, might not be at all. And I just cannot be locked into any particular perspective because I changed, circumstances change, the needs change. So flex. Nourishing often includes speaking our truth, even if others don't like it or agree. Saying what we need, not simply expecting others to figure it out. Resisting the urge to judge or blame others if they don't give us what we need or if they simply need something else. I don't know about anybody else, but as a Leo, a super Leo, these have not been easy. Well, speaking the truth has been easy, excuse me, but saying what I need, I expect others to know it. I've discovered that. And judging and blaming, not anymore, but when I was young, I was hell on wheels. Allow for mistakes, self and others. Life is a learning process, so it's important to remember one thing. We're all students. We all make mistakes. So as we go into, when we begin, I want to show this slide again when we begin our Q&A. Thomas Jefferson said, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but words really matter, and sometimes they matter a lot. So what if Jefferson had said well-being instead of happiness? I want us to ponder that. Okay, how different might the American psyche and our society be today if we were pursuing well-being versus happiness?